People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in their rear view, like black hole sun in the sky. Why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. Two windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun-shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
You don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue, a state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladders for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Last stand, and I came to deliver. Been called a Clinton operative, a Russian, and a grifter. By libs, a Washington student debt, proud to be an intern, sucking up to pigs who get a tax cut in the midterms. You cut the ties but never heal the wrist burns. Capitalist shackles wrap and penetrate like ringworms around the necks of those whose deaths will not affect the king's purse or the coffers of the company the king serves, who manufacture mandated tinctures. They're safetied out of hanging from a fixture, half a mile skyward, just dangling from the rafters. My grift is sobbing till I'm cackling with laughter. I guess I would have made a decent actor. I'd be great at crying on command until they cut plus 40 minutes after. When the director waves a hand, it ain't a rap, it's now a legal matter. Honey, my grift is weeping on a mic until I'm hacking up airstrike verses like it's bombs away and batter up. Swinging on these bigots, they keep killing us to fatten up. Kill the switch, eat the rich, I think they're finally fat enough. Grab your knife and fork, the world is yours, just say you've had enough. And if you're comfy, you could go ahead and laugh it up. Tell me how the most important vote I'll ever cast is like the choosing of a bus, in that it might not take you anywhere you want, but no one can deny the fact the bus is now no longer where it was. And that's the kind of progress we should celebrate and trust. Spoken like a kid who never took a bus. Spoken like a piece of shit that used some cash to mask his stink and truly thinks he's one of us. Spoken like a terminally unserious person who equates our cries for rights to mixed up orders from a server. It paints a privileged picture of what you would label urgent if the worst thing you've experienced in life has been the time your waiter accidentally brought a tray of gold flake scallop when you clearly ordered gold flake urchin. And now you're storming out the restaurant and hopping in a Tesla. You got 80 pounds of Tony Fauci merchant.
Rewind to chains won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride.
Best to place your bets on weaponizing the identity of every limp progressive claiming grassroots integrity. Policy is a slippery slope for all of its complexity, so flex your brave resistance with this Ilhan Omar NFT. Numbered one of 723. Each depicts her valiantly championing a bill before she lays it at a donor's feet. And she can throw her hands up in the air with AOC and say if only Nina Turner could have voted present too, that's why we need another seat. We need some more progressives we elect to only tweet, who live to serve Humana and their label of elective slapped on every patient's gravest needs. And every station plays the theme that medical professionals agree on the effectiveness and safety of injections authorized for this emergency. And in purely unrelated news, the profits of the ones who manufacture vaccines just increased by nearly 36 billion with a fucking B. Sometimes it feels like we're the only ones that see. Sometimes it feels like all of us are lost at sea. And every time we think we see an island on the tip of the horizon, it turns out to be another measure making sure we're kept within the watchful eye of murderous authority. And so I guess my grift is crying for the future they denied us, where the people who would buy us are a mockable minority. And we are more than genomes under warranty. And we are more than serfs in constant quarantine. If I had a single breath left, I'd let the chorus scream. I'd announce our leaders claiming none for all and more for me. None for all and more for me. None for all and more for me. None for all and more for me.
Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride.
Who are these people?
Who are are these people? Hi, everybody. It's been a week since you heard my voice, amazingly enough, because I skipped out on Sunday night on boats. So
Who are these people?
who are these people? That's right. So let's
Who are
ask
these people?
Lopan and Melissa, of
Who
course.
are these people?
I have no idea. So I see that Fred Edwards already here. I see CBC's already here. I see Dissent's already here. Hi, everybody. Okay, we're going to take a deep breath because we have a lot of stuff to get to. Joe Blank, and you're not turning it into a Russian thing because we never hated on Russian people. Now, the leadership of any country is a whole other story, the oligarchy, whatever, what have you. You know how we feel about that. So we're going to talk about Delaney. You know, it's been going on for more than 2 weeks. I think almost 3 weeks at this point. It's pretty wild. So I brought some coverage, and I want to talk. I know Dissent talked about it on Sunday night, too, on ProPilled. You guys aren't watching that. What are you doing? Yeah, I know you should be watching that. And then we're also going to talk a long Fuck Israel segment. Go figure. We never do those, do we? So, yes, we're going to say Fuck Israel because we do that every Tuesday because they keep pulling enough stuff that makes us have to say fuck Israel, and we're going to keep doing that. And then we're going to talk about Cuba and what's happening over there. Arturo from Decolonized Journalism wrote a good piece that's short, and I'm going to read through that one. Got a lightning round that's a little bit extended, and there's a little bit of a tease in there. Another old friend coming back to us that we haven't seen in several years. I'm pretty excited to see what happens there. And of course, we're going to have our GoFundMe's and we'll cut out of here. And I appreciate everybody being here. And before we get started, like I always ask, please support independent media. We need it more than ever. Everybody, I think, that's here right now has already supported in some way, shape, or form and is on that wall of fame. And I really appreciate that. I sent out an email yesterday to 7,500 free subscribers to ask if you're not paid, how come? And I got no responses and 15 unsubscribed. So I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry for asking, but yes, we do run on exclusively user-funded money, and then of course it's self-funded beyond. So anything that you can contribute really helps and really appreciate. The ways to do that are there. Here, let's do it this way because it's easier. Oh, you got it there. Codashfee.com. That's what puts it up on screen. Cash App, it would show up on my phone and put it right in the bank quick. PayPal.me/IndieNewsNetwork. You do that as friends and family. Patreon.com/IndieNewsNetwork for the monthlies. And then, of course, the name of the show. It's Indie News Now Live. That's because it's a website called IndieNewsNow.com.
Who are these people?
Oh, I just got a who are these people? Look at that. So IndieNewsNow.com is a website where you can read independent news and watch videos from up to for more than 100 different sources. Just go there, bookmark it, come back because there's going to be different articles, different stuff to read every time. So thank you so much. Yes, I know people unsub after their monthly or annual payment. Yes, thank you. I get that sometimes, but I don't know. These were free subscribers that got the thing and were like, hey, I guess they didn't like hearing that. And then, of course, speaking of Substack, rookie move. I blew it. I forgot to turn on Substack. Good job, dude. So let's wait for a second so that I can say hi to Substack as they arrive quickly into the chat. Support independent media. Thank you on Substack at IndieMediaToday.com. Welcome to everybody joining from IndieMediaToday.com and then from INNNewsletter.com. That's where I publish a weekly update for the network, and we live stream several other shows. So subscribe over there as well. Reason to subscribe everywhere. Hi, everyone. Okay. So, Jeremy, good to see you. Robin, how are you? We got a great show tonight. I just went through the lineup, and then I realized, oh, crap, I never turned on Substack. So, welcome. You're about a minute late, 2 minutes late, 5 minutes late. We're going to talk about Delaney and ICE detention. We're going to talk about fuck Israel and all the stuff they're up to. We're going to talk about Cuba, and then we're going to do a lightning round. We'll do our GoFundMe's and get out of here. All right. So, and we did our, hey, support us. So let's get going. Hold on. Let me blow that up so you guys don't have to see the side. Good. Do it. All right. Hi, everyone. Okay. Police the Police 2.0. Good account. If you're not already following them, good. They're a good follow. Posted just a friendly reminder. We can start with this. Did you know that police around the country plant plainclothes undercover provocateurs in protests? In Oakland, California, during peaceful protests, 2 plainclothes California Highway Patrol officers had bandanas covering their faces and started instigating violence, looting and smashing windows. When they were outed by the crowd, one of them was attacked. His partner pulled a gun. These are known as agent provocateurs. So, under that guise, just realize what's going on at Delaney in some cases. So, first off, we'll start with Andrew Mercado at Mercado Media. A good independent outlet, leans more toward the Democratic side, but hey, anyone that wants to get in this fight and film it right now, I'm all for gathering as much information as possible from real time on the scene journalists. And Ford Fisher from News to Share was there as well. There's this B. Goodrich. There were several on-site journalists. So in this case, what Mercado's saying is that this is crazy. An Essex County Prosecutor's Office sergeant has been charged with third-degree theft after authorities allege he stole a photojournalist's camera bag during the May 30th protests at Delaney Hall. Investigators say Sergeant Darrell Brown took a bag containing about $10,000 in camera equipment after the journalist was injured and transported to a hospital. Authorities reportedly used an AirTag, an Apple AirTag, body-worn camera footage, and a search warrant to connect Brown to the missing gear. So this guy literally saw that the journalist got taken off, put the bag in his car, and was like, I'm getting out of here. Several items were later recovered from his home, according to investigators. He's been suspended without pay. He hasn't been fired. He hasn't been charged. He has been charged, but not convicted. Under New Jersey law, third-degree theft carries a potential sentence of 3 to 5 years in prison. So what the hell's happening at Delaney? Well, you've got an ICE detention facility that's abusing people, that's stopping politicians from getting in, that has a mass 24-hour protest going around the clock. And this is just some of the photos that these guys have taken. The governor had to send the state police in. The local police have been barred from going out, but they're also helping out ICE troops as well. Everybody, it's basically the public against the officers. Every time a car comes out, they want to see who's in it. It's a crazy scene. They've got cops on horseback there and full riot gear, right? Okay, these are just some of the images that Mercado was able to capture on June 4th alone. That's an amazing, haunting image. All right, so I wanted to start with this video. We have several tonight. Come on. Wow, slow loader. Let's go. Come on. This is I run down. No. All right. So what this is supposed to be is protesters blocking the car entering Delaney, and masked ICE goons come out and start lining the sides to block the protesters from stopping cars from entering and exiting. And they're pushing people, and oh, damn it. Okay, what a surprise that all of a sudden this video is having trouble loading. Thanks, Instagram. Okay, we'll have to. I'll link it later on, and I'll try to find it somewhere else. Let's see if we can get it to load. I guarantee you after the show, it'll load just fine. But for whatever reason, this is what's happening right now. And you can see this happening in real time. This happens to Ryan at The Last American Vagabond all the time, and others as well. Who's right in the middle of this fight again? Look who. Miss Rachel. Amazing. She seems to be in the right place everywhere all the time. Delaney Hall, New Jersey. Met the sweetest children whose hearts are broken. They just want their parents home again. I spoke with a 13-year-old whose dad is in Delaney. He's a wonderful father, she said, tearing up. He's been in the U.S. for 20 years. He worked driving a truck. She lit up talking about how they watched movies together every Friday night and got snacks. He's the one who jokes around and makes everyone laugh. My mom tries to be strong for me, but I know she's broken. Her dad has to miss her graduation, their birthdays. It makes no sense what their family has been ripped apart. And I've been saying the same thing. Why are we traumatizing kids? That's exactly what she says. Her brother has a disability and is nonverbal and can't walk. They need their dad. She sang to her brother, and he did all the sign for more many times. I'll always stand with these families. Thank you so much for New Jersey Immigrant Justice. Follow them as well. Cruel. I said it's all so pointless. Cruel for the sake of cruelty, inflicting lifelong scars on everyone who encounters ICE detention. These centers need to be abolished. They need to shut these things down. They need to figure out another solution because this one ain't working. I mean, the people that are running it would say it's working wonderfully. Their profits are doing terrific. They're getting more contracts from the government, and they're treating the people the way that the Trump administration sadly wants them treated. All right. Now, I'm a big fan of this lady, NJ Socialist. I got a couple of videos from her. She actually went on site. So let's watch her. See, I loaded this one before to make sure it didn't do that. She's standing outside.
These are state police. That's not ICE. That's the police. And look at the Trump signs behind the door. It's day 8 of the hunger strike at Delaney Hall. And this is the scene.
Okay, there's a hunger strike going on inside. All right, the strikers' demands were that they wanted to meet with Mikey Sherrill, the governor. They wanted to release the elderly, young, and sick and pregnant detainees. They wanted meaningful review of cases and habeas filings, and coercive pressure to sign deportation and voluntary departure documents. Freedom, it's crazy the way these people are being mistreated. So NJ Socialist came home and recorded something for everyone to think about, and I wanted to play this for everyone.
Delaney Hall. And I do want to encourage people to keep showing up there, to support the detainees and their families, and to uplift the demands of the strikers. But there are some things that you have to understand. Otherwise, you are just putting yourself in unnecessary danger. The first thing is that Delaney Hall is a militarized zone. That is what it's become. It's a militarized zone. You've got ICE, who are a federally sanctioned militarized group, who have long proven that they are eager to enact deadly violence on civilians. You've got both state police and local various police forces, who are, again, militarized groups who have long proven that they are willing to enact deadly violence on civilians. And you've also got Geo Group, who are also armed, and again, proving that they are willing to enact violence on civilians with, up till now, little to no consequences. Despite this, I do think we should all be up there when we can. I've gone twice. I work a full-time job. I'm a single mom, and I've made it out there twice. You don't have to be there all the time, but if you can pull a shift, that's great. But you also should know what you're walking into, and you should do a risk assessment on yourself first. What is your tolerance for violence? Because if you walk into that militarized zone, the chances of you experiencing some sort of violence are very high. And now they're banning PPE, so you can't even go in with a mask or a respirator. And it's okay to be afraid. I'm scared every time I walk into a situation like that. And I'm scared because I understand the state's capacity for violence. Some people in this country have always been aware of the state's capacity for violence because they were the direct victims of it. Now, with all due respect on this next part, What I'm noticing outside Delaney is a lot of the people who are showing up or who have shown up previously tend to be liberals. Liberals who support the democratic establishment and believe in liberal ideals. And when the state, via ICE and local police, started abusing protesters these past couple weeks, a lot of liberals were really shocked. Some of them were asking to send in the National Guard or the police to protect them from ICE, and were just floored when the police did the exact opposite. Some of you were shocked when Mikey Sherrill sent in the police to beat people's asses. But an earnest study of American history would have proven that this is exactly what they were going to do. It's getting to the point now where you have got to be able to recognize the enemies, especially if you're going to put yourself on the front lines. And the police are always the enemy of the people. They are the boot of the state. The police started out as slave catchers in this country. All these Democratic politicians you're asking to come save you, they supported a genocide. They increased ICE funding throughout every administration. Prepare yourself for violence and start recognizing your enemies. It's now been over 2 weeks since...
Okay. If you're not following her, by the way, NJ_socialist on Instagram, fire. She posts great stuff all the time. Big fan. And she's out there doing the work. Now, I brought a couple of articles, and one of them was written and posted at a website called Crime Think. Okay? What a great photo this is, by the way, of all the protesters with their homemade stuff against all the bootlicking fascist thugs that are defending an ICE detention facility that people just want to let their relatives out of. Bill, that's really funny. Okay, so this is a really long timeline. So I'm going to whiz through this real quick. As quick as I can, at least. So yeah, you can literally click and go to current events. I'll take you to a whole tag down at the bottom. Inside the clashes at Delaney Hall Detention Center from a mutual aid volunteer. So this, again, is starting May 22nd. You're talking about almost 3 weeks. Amid a surge of hunger strikes in immigration detention prisons across the United States, 300 detainees announced from their cells in Newark that they would not eat and would not toil for their captors until their demands were met. This sparked 10 days of protest and furious retaliation from federal, state, and local authorities. What began as a peaceful vigil outside Delaney Hall Detention Center in solidarity with the hunger strikers ended with the New Jersey state troopers encircling, brutalizing, and arresting scores of people. The series of events leading up to the strike and culminating in a marathon of violence has been densely packed. Consequently, the fog of war has obscured key details, including the complex dynamics at play between protesters and mutual aid workers, between experienced ICE activists and the local terrain, between the government of New Jersey and federal mercenaries. Here, a participant in mutual aid efforts at Delaney Hall over those preceding months, who was on the ground for much of this wave of protests, recounts how the clashes unfolded. I can imagine that it's because the police escalated violence. So this person starts by describing that they're with an organization called Eyes on ICE, New Jersey, a mutual aid collective that's been providing aid and hospitality to the detainees held captive in Delaney Hall, which is one of the largest immigrant and customs enforcement detention centers in the Northeast, as well as to the families that visit them. That's like the Lord's work, like taking care of those people right now when their breadwinner is in prison, if not both, Eyes on ICE is a coalition of volunteers and a pre-existing network of aid organizations. All right. And there's a bunch listed. All right. And others that have emerged over decades of advocating for those subjected to an increasingly archaic immigration system. That's why all of these organizations are necessary in the first place. All right. Established immigrant justice and faith-based communities with aligned advocacy goals converged on Delaney Hall soon after it reopened in May 2025, because the Trump administration decided to reopen it with all the arrests and the roundups because of ICE detention when they started deporting people like crazy. All right. Despite the forceful retaliation. I remember this last year that you had a congressperson tried to get in. You had the Newark mayor, Raz Baraka, tried to get in. They got arrested and like charged, right? Then this is again in last May. Over the following weeks, protesters self-organized and refocused their efforts. They shifted to assisting detainees and their families through networks of aid distribution, lawyers and advocates, seeking to catch people before they fall through the cracks. At the same time that the aid group was being built, a ring of concertina-topped mesh fencing sprang up around the prison. As the weather grew colder and the government of Essex County, the county that holds that detention facility, all right, they erected a permanent white tent to house Eyes on Ice. That tent has now come to be known as the Radical Hospitality Zone. All right, and this is a picture of what goes on inside the Radical Hospitality Zone. Volunteers who do not have professional careers in advocacy participate by helping to maintain a community at the prison gates. Some of us cook or battle inclement weather. Others offer childcare, collect donations of groceries and diapers, assist visiting families with transportation, or beautify the tent that houses us with art and music. All of us work together to document the detainees and their captors. Really? So tell me what the problem with these people again are. They're trying to help people that are in trouble. The problem is that the Trump administration doesn't want these people to be helped. They just want them to suffer, which is horrible. Why are we doing this to these people? Why? Just awful. Delaney Hall Detention Center is situated in one of the busiest shipping hubs in the country. Located directly behind Newark Airport, the private prison shares the same square mile with multiple incineration plants and a busy commercial road. Periodically, a train screams by loaded with trash to be incinerated or animal carcasses for reprocessing at the facility across the street. The prison itself is about the size of a Costco with a 1,000 bed capacity. That's pretty big. It's operated by Geo Group, one of the largest private prison contractors in the world. Dissent and Bloom's written about Geo Group quite a bit. Geo Group has a poor human rights track record and is quick to dismiss any inquiries or criticisms. Core Civic is the other large private prison company, by the way. The New Jersey Globe, which is not a paper that I'm usually a fan of, it's run by a guy that worked for Chris Christie, reports that the prison is often at maximum capacity. So volunteers do their best to count the number of captives inside the tinted windows of the vans that come and go. Some of the people who were released tell us they were arrested just days earlier, usually by accident or as a consequence of racial profiling, because that's still happening. Others have been in the system for months, transferring between detention centers in Louisiana. We all know who was there, Mahmoud Khalil and Ramasio Ozturk. Texas, you're talking about Dilley Detention Facility, likely. But there are other ones. And then back to Delaney, seemingly with the dual purpose of keeping them hidden or underrepresented in the legal system, while also creating excuses for Geo Group, who also owns, like I said, Delaney, and often the largest private prison and you have the largest private prison company in the state, right? To run up quite the tab with the obsequious federal government that's all happy to pay, right? That's what the puddle at Delaney Hall says. And that's 100% believable. Again, this is a really, 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 really long article that goes into a lot of nuance. And I'm going to skip down toward the end here so we can get down to New Jersey still reeling from the week of vicious retaliation for the strike from both the state and federal governments. Narratives about the protests, are regularly misrepresented in corporate news outlets. Nonetheless, centrists who were mostly sympathetic to the volunteers before this week have experienced collective disillusionment with state authority, especially with their Democratic governor, Mikey Sherrill. She's really pissed off a lot of people, especially the liberals and lefties that got her elected. You know, the progressives that actually came out and fought for her when she first ran for Congress. It remains to be seen whether conditions will improve for the detainees in Delaney. Yet their story has been elevated to a national audience, forcing another discussion about police violence and immigration enforcement. And we've been talking about Delaney too. For now, ICE continues to operate from their field office in downtown Newark at 614 Friedrichshain Avenue. An increasing number of people have been released from the facility, including some who managed to obtain the attention of congresspeople on oversight visits. Many of those released have expressed profound gratitude for the nationwide expressions of solidarity and the solidarity of the protesters, which they could hear from their cells. The strike at Delaney Hall has sparked strikes at other facilities around the country, which is great. But again, they shouldn't be there in the first place. This is all insane. None of this is necessary. None of this should be done. This is all, by the way, the Trump administration. I have to say that, you know, and I got to call it the way I also would see it down the middle, which is that I don't think the Democrats would have been doing this. Not necessarily to this level. You got 75,000 people in ICE detention facilities from Geo Group, where they're doing roundup stops around the country like this. I know Democrats funded ICE, and I know that there was Border Patrol stuff, but it wasn't like this, and it hasn't been like this. They were rounding up college students for anti-Palestine protests the same way. That all happened under Trump, not under Biden-Harris. Now, would they have caved and buckled in the spring? Maybe. I don't know. But I know what did happen. And I know who's to blame for that shit. And for this, visitation, again, is set to resume with new restrictions. Yeah, people haven't seen their relatives in weeks. The people who stand at the gates of Delaney Hall day in and day out will continue to stand there and should. Many will continue working to dismantle the unjust immigration system as they did before the reopening of Delaney Hall. Anti-ICE protesters will regroup and converge on the next flashpoint, wherever that may be. Their numbers will likely be bolstered by new companions from New York and New Jersey who will add their recent experience defying ICE to the movement's collective memory. The fight will continue as they refine their tactics and strategies. I mean, these people have been able to withstand for weeks fighting the cops, counting cars coming in and out of the facilities. It's pretty wild. I did bring one other article here about Delaney Hall from someone that I happen to know is from New Jersey. So this is local to him. And that's Sam Carlin from Left Voice. Left Voice is an Indie Media Award honoree for being one of the top outlets out there. They are lefty, but I think they call it how they see it, and I think they do call it pretty accurate. There's some excellent writers and journalists over there. I believe the photo up at the top, if I pull this down, this is by Luigi Morris, another, by the way, Indie Media Award honoree for photojournalism and for his written journalism as well. Luigi's awesome. So Sam Carlin has been writing. I mean, he was attending and writing about Assange protests in 2021, 2022. I know about Samuel through Misty and through organizing for the Assange protests. So, photo by Luigi, a new front. And so the title of this article is that the fight to close Delaney has reignited the movement against ICE. Again, is this wishful thinking? Maybe. But there really is. If you're sitting in New Jersey, you're feeling this right now in a way that you hadn't felt it. Probably the same way that the people in Minnesota felt it, the same way the people in Chicago felt it, the people in North Carolina, Charlotte, and everywhere else Los Angeles, Portland. Think about all the cities that ICE has done stormtrooper-like stuff, infiltrated a facility, and blocked politicians from entering. Look what happened down at Alligator Alcatraz down in Florida last year. Yes, ICE needs to be responsible for getting people to their homes. Not allowed, no, 100%. Not allowed to drop off naked, blind people in the middle of nowhere, freezing to death. They did that in Minnesota regularly, 100%. Right. Well, dissent saying that they've been attacking immigrants since Rush Limbaugh read Flight 93 election to 15 million people in 2016 election cycle. Being anti-immigration is the number one goal of the new right going back years. Good analysis. So his hopium post here is how this fight develops has strategic implications for immigrant rights movement across the country. So he says that a new front has opened up in the nationwide resistance to Trump's war on immigrants. New Jersey, buried deep in the industrial arteries of Newark, an area referred to by residents as the chemical corridor, where the air smells of sewage and toxic waste, is the one-year-old ICE detention center, Delaney Hall. Community organizations have been fighting to close Delaney Hall since it even opened. Like they said in the last week of May, that fight escalated when around 300 immigrants imprisoned inside the detention center launched a hunger and labor strike to demand their freedom. In fact, the action coincided with hunger strikes in ICE detention centers in quite a few states. But what quickly turned New Jersey into a national flashpoint was the way that day after day, night after night, for an entire week, community members protesting in solidarity outside Delaney Hall were attacked by ICE agents enduring pepper spray, pepper balls, tasers, and beatings. They didn't just endure those attacks, they fought back. So a participant of the protests wrote for Left Voice, and there's an article from there. All right, normal everyday people arrived with useful respirators, shatterproof goggles, even homemade shields to better hold the line, insisting that not another van leave with anyone as the hunger and labor strikers heroically persisted. In response to these nightly confrontations with ICE, New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill replaced the ICE agents with New Jersey State Police, who spent 3 nights attacking immigrant rights activists even more aggressively than ICE had. This culminated in the arrest of at least 60 people, including several journalists who were held in Essex County Jail for over 24 hours without even being charged or processed. I wonder if they learned that from Israel, who loves to do that to Palestinians. Sherrill was aided by the supposedly progressive mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, who imposed a nighttime curfew and banned all foot traffic within a half-mile radius of Delaney Hall, setting up the pretext for the dozens of arrests on Sunday, May 31st. That has turned New Jersey into a national flashpoint in the fight against ICE. Okay, the confrontation with Delaney Hall shows that the desire of Americans to bring about an end to ICE terror while temporarily subdued following the powerful struggle in Minneapolis remains alive. So long as ICE continues to terrorize immigrants across the United States, community opposition could flare up at any moment. Hopefully does. This is exactly why the fight against Delaney Hall has galvanized people across the country, drawing activists from New York, Pennsylvania, and even Minnesota. It's exactly why Sherrill and New Jersey Attorney General Jennifer Davenport have slandered supporters from other states as outside agitators. Remember how we talked about outside agent provocateurs? In a desperate effort to isolate New Jerseyans and contain the struggle. And it's exactly why it's essential that those fighting in the state seize the current moment. This requires pursuing a strategy that can build off of the growing attention and solidarity our fight is receiving, and to develop our own collective power independent of the Democrats who are trying to channel our movement back into the safety valves of the courts and the midterm elections, which is exactly where they want it to go, where they have donor control and will end up steering it back toward the police. So he talks more about the post-Minneapolis moment. Okay, there is no separating the fight in Newark from the one that arose in Minneapolis. Like I just pointed out before, throughout 2025, cities like LA and Chicago show that there's an advanced sector of the immigrant rights movement willing to confront the terror that ICE is inflicting on our communities. Minneapolis was the apex and brought the movement to the center of national politics and led to the resignation of Greg Bovino, who I heard rumors that he's floating a presidential run in 2028. I don't know if he's actually going to run on the Nazi Party, but he certainly would fit there. But Minneapolis was not just important because of how much attention it received. It was important because of how people fought back. So he talks about Daniel Kovacs, who recently argued in the Left Voice magazine, okay, that Minneapolis wasn't the only site, was not only the site of the most impressive fight against ICE and the Trump administration. It was the stage where the past, present, and future characteristics of class struggle came into being. It posed questions that go to the heart of the challenges of developing a political force capable of counterattacking the far right, the relationship between community and the workplace, and the reorganization of a political terrain where the interests of the working class and the oppressed come to the fore. The importance of the lessons of Minneapolis and the socialist left cannot be underestimated, because that's the people that are organizing all these community things are mostly on the left, because they have experience in fighting the government for the last 10 years plus. In particular, Minneapolis showed the potential for an advanced sector of the movement against ICE to reach a much broader community. While this broader community may not be made up of already radicalized and experienced activists, its strength lies in how widespread outrage was able to mobilize a massive force that's deeply touched by the attack on immigrants. I mean, I agree. How many people really are coming out? I guess there's a lot. I mean, that's a good thing. I don't really see that, but I'm glad they are. Importantly, these broader sectors are not satisfied with the leadership of the Democratic Party, which works to keep the movement for immigrant rights within the logic of the capitalist state, betting on negotiations in Congress and elections instead of deepening class struggle. Well, it is a good thing that they don't believe in democratic leadership, for sure. And that, community leadership is the way to go, and not letting outside forces dictate policy. This work of directing class struggle back into the confines of the Democratic Party is also carried out by union and social movement bureaucracies, which have large bases of supporters, but reinforce the logic that the main purpose of our collective power is to pressure politicians with predetermined phone blasts and letter writing campaigns, rather than creating spaces for us to hold collective discussions over strategy for the movement. I think yes, but also much more opposition and loud opposition, pressuring politicians wherever they go by humiliating them, shouting them down, and embarrassing them. I do think shame works. Okay, so this is the kumbaya stuff. This contradiction of broader community willing to fight and a leadership willing to contain class struggle exploded in Minneapolis, with the movement finding creative ways to organize itself from below. Some of the most advanced expressions of this were the whistle networks and the ICE watch networks, the initiatives of rank-and-file teachers organizing with parents to protect and financially support immigrant families, and the emergence of a workers' assembly, which served as a democratic body for those in the movement to debate strategy and vote on proposals for next steps. They actually did enact their own form of democracy, is what he's talking about here. Those whistle things, whenever ICE would go into town, all the following things where they would They would follow and track the license plate or blasting music outside the hotel. I mean, I remember seeing all that stuff and encouraging it all. Great stuff, right? And while there have been important debates on whether or not Minneapolis carried out an actual general strike, which they didn't, what cannot be denied is that the economic shutdown that took place on January 23rd demonstrated that sectors of the U.S. working class are beginning to understand our power as workers and are finding ways to fight as a class, not just for bread and butter demands, but against the oppression which is ingrained in the capitalist system. Again, I think that's a little kumbaya. I think it's mostly about bread and butter stuff. Right now, they want their gas prices to go down. All right, again, this is also kind of long, but here we go. Minneapolis showed other states how to organize from below. Here in Jersey, we love a good underdog story and we love a good fight. Right now, how we fight has implications for how the movement against ICE develops across the country. The Democrats here know that, okay, which is why after using the state police and curfews to attack our protests, both the state of New Jersey and the city of Newark have announced that they're suing Geo Group, the private prison company that runs Delaney Hall. The stick failed to contain our movement, so now they're using the carrot. But we already have an experience of using the courts to try to end ICE detention in our state. In 2021, under immense pressure from combative protests, New Jersey closed 3 county-run ICE detention centers and sought to ban the last remaining one, Elizabeth Detention Center, run by private prison company CoreCivic, who I mentioned before, by passing a state ban on private prison companies. This was an important concession brought about through the power of our movement. But in 2023, CoreCivic sued New Jersey in order to keep Elizabeth alive, and the Biden admin publicly supported CoreCivic. So, okay, I guess this was a Biden problem too, because Biden, I guess, is blue Trump. I did not know that it was this bad under Biden. They didn't have 75,000 people locked up under Biden. But here we go. Local Democrats across the board, including Mikey Sherrill, Baraka, Cory Booker, and Andy Kim, just to name a few, were silent, not wanting to cause trouble then for Biden's and later Kamala Harris's presidential campaigns. Of course. Now, Andy Kim also, by the way, got tear gassed at the facility at Delaney last week. This paved the way for the Third Circuit Court of Appeals to overrule the state's ban on private prisons, setting the very conditions for Delaney to even open a year later. So if you think about it, if it weren't for the Democrats that fought to make sure that CoreCivic was still able to operate Elizabeth and able to sue New Jersey, you wouldn't have had this private prison here in this case at all. It would have been somewhere else, that's all. It would be absurd to expect the courts, now even in more alignment with the far right, to be any more on the movement side at this time. Many longtime immigrant rights activists in New Jersey are already saying they don't have faith in these new lawsuits and that we need to find new avenues to fight back. That's good. Those avenues are already available, and Minneapolis shows us how to use them. Right? First, we need to learn from Minneapolis how valuable it is when our local struggle becomes an example for the whole country. It bears repeating that Sherrill wouldn't be coming out so strongly against outside agitators if the prospect of this fight reaching beyond New Jersey wasn't such a serious risk. And the party's coming to her like, you've got to shut this down. In fact, part of what made organizing in New Jersey so strong in 2021 was that it was led by a coalition of activists from New York and New Jersey who had a strong analysis of how ICE detention centers are used to ramp up operations, not just throughout the state, but also in New York and Pennsylvania. Now, as New Yorkers and Pennsylvanians join that fight against Delaney Hall, we've got an opportunity to rebuild that cross-state solidarity. Again, kumbaya, my lord, here a little bit. So let's skip down a little further. Democrats aren't our allies. Well, I can't agree with that, any more than possible. Okay. National organizations like DSA have an important role to play in building these broader connections, both with other states and broader layers of the community and working class. Not a fan of theirs, but he says, in fact, the North Jersey chapter has been one of the most consistent groups organizing against ICE in New Jersey. And as the situation escalated outside Delaney Hall, many New York City DSA members with large social media platforms called on people in the area to mobilize. On June 2nd, DSA put out a national statement in solidarity with the fight around Delaney Hall. These are important shows of solidarity, and they expressed the willingness of DSA membership to mobilize for immigrant rights and expand the fight, which is nice. However, DSA's relationship with the Democratic Party creates an important obstacle for it to organize the social force we need to defeat ICE with class struggle and class independence. Holding executive positions and boasting internationally recognized public figures within the capitalist state has not turned into a consistent opposition to ICE expansion. Zohran Mamdani, for example, has not called for the closure of Delaney Hall since taking office. Demanding that he do so is not pie in the sky. It also imprisons New Yorkers, making it an issue for the mayor of New York. And Mamdani previously traveled to Delaney Hall and used his massive platform to publicize the fight against it when he was campaigning for mayor. Now he has an even larger bully pulpit at its disposal. Jake Efros, a DSA member and city councilor representing Jersey City's Ward D for his part, did visit Delaney Hall in support of the protests and called to close the jail, abolish ICE, and echoed the demand of the movement to free them all being every single person languishing in ICE jails. The only way for politicians who call themselves socialists to advance a combative agenda in local legislatures, to fight the far right, is by challenging the Democratic Party, which does everything in its power to stifle our struggle. Totally agree. Key to confronting the Democratic Party, even though they can't be confronted and they can't be reasoned with because they're crazy, radical, they're fanatical Zionists on themselves. Okay. Key to confronting the Democratic Party is challenging their practice of demobilizing the working class whenever it shows a desire to fight on its own terms. The energy of thousands of DSA members actively standing in solidarity with immigrants must not be turned into paper votes for a party that will continue its anti-immigrant policies, but with a friendlier face, thus keeping people with 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the graveyard of social movements at a time when people are questioning if the Democrats can represent themselves ever. Or their interests, right? They won't. They'll never represent they won't. I can tell you now. We cannot hope to transform the major parties of capital, the architect of mass deportation policies during the Obama era, into an instrument of our class and of the immigrant rights struggle. That's not the job of capitalist electeds, and it never will be their job. So our movement in New Jersey is not homogenous, as it's not homogenous in the rest of the country. We want to free them all. Bottom line. All right. And our movement does not need to be confined to the practices we've tried before. There are also opportunities to build out and build from below. There's momentum to carry this fight forward, not just from Newark, but not just in New Jersey, not just in the region, but across the entire country. Yeah, fuck ICE. All right, and I have one more reason why we say fuck ICE. Here we go. Just a reminder that these are concentration camps, and now that Mark Y. Mullen's running it now instead of what's her name? Kristi Noem, right? DHS. ICE announces that it will no longer report deaths of recently released detainees. This comes after the deaths of recently released detainees surged to a 2-decade high. Nothing to see here. Yeah, and go check out that article by Samuel Carlin over at Left Voice. There's a lot more there, and I'll also post the one from Crime Think. That timeline is also super long, but we're getting into it here. I also wanted to show this is going to be the thumbnail for the segment for the clip that goes out sometime during the week. So I've already made the clip, so that's cool. Okay, so let's go here. Hi everyone. All right, how's everyone doing? My throat's already dry, so I'm gonna have to take something to drink. Christy, hide your puppy's gnome. That's right, Topher. That's exactly right. Yes, they're no longer going to be reporting on ICE deaths outside of detention. Correct. Weird. Why would they do that? Yeah, I know, Lady Alex. I am too. I'm burned out, but I can't turn away because it's happening to people. Like, I'm an empath, I guess, and it sucks because I feel too much of this stuff. I really do. And, it's really hard. What's up, Naybones? How are you? It's really not, it's a big challenge to absorb all this. I talked with Charlie Robinson about it. One of the ways that I kind of do that is by doing the other shows on this network and by spending time with the kids and taking a little bit of time. Like this past week, I did not do any live streaming since last Tuesday. So yeah, it's hard to see and it's hard to watch. And we're going to get into stuff that's even harder to see next with the Israel stuff. And I appreciate everybody hanging out, and I get that it's a bummer sometimes, but it's so important to not turn away from these stories. And some other shows cover some of it, but they don't go in depth to a lot of the stuff. I think Ryan Christian at The Last American Vagabond does about the best job of anyone I know, going into multiple different angles on just about every story, pulling as many different viewpoints and people having something to say about that. It's not opposing viewpoints, but it's a variety of what this one had to say, and this one had to say, and this one's saying this about this, and they're different points. And I appreciate Ryan doing that. And I try to do that here. All right. Let me bring up. So we talked about Miss Rachel. We're going to talk more about Miss Rachel because she seems to be everywhere these days where there's a fight against fascism. And I appreciate her doing that. Oh, wait, I forgot to let me go back. That was the thumbnail, but I'll come back to ask you to support independent media because we need it more than ever. Oh man, I'm getting rusty here. The ways to do that are up there, and the people that have already done that are up there. Cash App, $ Indie News Network, at co-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, right? Patreon.com/Indie News Network for monthly. IndieNewsNow.com is the website that I built to scrape independent media and be able to present it and let you link directly to them, ad-free and filter-free, so that you can just see it real time as it comes in. And then check out Substack. Hi, everybody over at Substack, IndieMediaToday.com. We're also over at INNNewsletter.com. I publish over there for Indie News Network, where I am a co-founder and do a lot of the stuff for the network. Okay, so yes, I want to get back to this. So yes, this is our Fuck Israel segment, and if you're not familiar, we have to do one of these every week because Israel keeps murdering people with impunity, and not just murdering, but torturing, abducting, and destroying lives, property, land, and stealing it in multiple areas simultaneously to a level that breaks some people and they can't watch. So I understand if you can't, because there's going to be some really rough stuff tonight, but I think it's really important to bring it all. Yeah. So what are we talking about? Hi, everyone. There's some of the people that'll be featured tonight, and unfortunately, with this another baby, and that was in the headline for tonight's stream: a 7-month-old baby executed. I can't even. I mean, it's going to be hard to get through that one. Then we talk about these 4 Palestinian women were abducted in the West Bank by the IDF and put into prison. Why? Oh, turns out they're national soccer players too. We'll talk about that. Miss Rachel again does a beautiful video. We've got Andy Worthington, another Indie Media Award honoree. So we're trying, and we've got Eva Bartlett bring some stuff, and that's Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, and we've got some heartbreaking updated news on him. Again, so fuck Israel for all this. You're going to hear that a lot tonight. So let's start with Middle East Eye. Israeli study finds that starvation in Gaza was the result of deliberate policy, which is like water is wet, of course, because they told you that they were doing that the entire time. We told you that they were doing that the entire time. But now they had to have a study to tell you that they've concluded without a doubt that starvation in Gaza resulted from a premeditated policy despite sustained public denial by the Israeli government and much of the media. So this article is Data for Denial. This report is titled Data for Denial, the Smokescreen Behind the Starvation of Gaza. The study was published last month by the Forum for Regional Thinking at Van Leer Jerusalem Institute. Some people are actually trying to get the truth out. Its author, Shmuel Lederman, is an Israeli scholar specializing in genocide studies. Okay, he told Middle East Eye that he was motivated by what he described as widespread denial within Israel over starvation in Gaza during the 2-year genocide that began in October 2023. They've stopped all trucks and aid coming in again. How can you deny this? He said such denial among the public was to be expected, drawing comparisons with historical cases of mass violence. There's a thirst for denial, he said, with many in Israel seeking to portray the army's conduct in Gaza and elsewhere as entirely justified or unproblematic. All right. So a report by the Israeli news site Walla in August 2025 similarly suggested that denial or minimization of the starvation crisis in Gaza was widespread across mainstream television channels. So tell me again how it's all Netanyahu, how it's all just the extreme far-right sect. No, it's not. It's the majority of the country. According to the study, international warnings were frequently dismissed or reframed to align with Israeli narratives. No surprise, they don't have a free press there. Some commentators acknowledged starvation only in mid-2025, attributing it to miscalculations rather than to broader policy decisions. Or to people with babies in baby carriages pushing them and parking them in front of aid trucks to stop them from being able to cross the border, the Rafah crossing. Letterman's research argues that such interpretations overlook a central principle in famine studies, that starvation is not determined simply by food availability, but by people's access to it. The study documents how restrictions on aid, fuel, and cooking gas, alongside the destruction of key infrastructure such as bakeries and disruption of humanitarian operations, severely limited Palestinians' access to food. It concludes that the starvation in Gaza resulted from deliberate planning, experimentation, and maneuvering around the humanitarian red line, aimed in part at managing international pressure on Israel during the massacre. It's not a war, it's a massacre. Here we go with trucks. According to Letterman's report, and let's see how accurate he is, throughout the war in Gaza, the number of trucks carrying food, medicine, and other humanitarian aid into the enclave has become a central point of public debate on starvation. Kogat, the Israeli military unit responsible for civil administration in the occupied Palestinian territories, claimed in August 2025 that the entry of 80 trucks per day would be sufficient to meet Gaza's population needs. Israeli researchers and journalists frequently echoed this assessment. Of course, it should be 500. Yep. Human rights organizations, UN agencies, and even the U.S. administration of President Joe Biden himself disagreed with Kogat's figures. The Biden admin estimated around 250 aid trucks per day would be required, while international organizations placed the figure at 500 to 600. So tell me again, 80. So they're just brainwashing their people. Oh, this isn't happening. Then we're allowing 80 trucks in. We should be. They're not. They weren't even allowing 50 trucks. I've been reporting on that. They count. Both recently and in the past, Kogat itself has cited significantly higher estimates. In 2008, for example, it stated that Gaza's then population of around 1.5 million required approximately 178 aid trucks per day to meet basic needs. And that wasn't during a siege where they're being bombed and displaced. So here's how Israel is replicating Nazi starvation tactics. Not saying they're Nazis, just saying they're behaving a lot like the Nazis do. Well, okay, I'm saying they're Nazis. Last month, Israel Hayom reported that Kogat had urged the government to reduce the number of aid trucks entering Gaza after the 2025 fake ceasefire down to 250, arguing that this level was sufficient for basic humanitarian requirements, as if they're any authority on what's humanitarian at this point. It's the Israeli military that wants to starve these people out. So already they were saying 250. Reduce the number down to 250, not 80. But did they? They reduced it down way below 150. In practice, this is an admission of starvation. So again, Letterman, his report argues that the starvation of Gaza began at the outset of the massacre in October of 2023. Totally agree. Actually, it happened long before that when they rationed exactly they put them on a starvation plus diet. Was literally what they called it. Until March 2024, Israel permitted only a fraction of recommended number of aid trucks into the Strip, contributing to the deepening food crisis. UN agencies, human rights groups, and Palestinian testimonies all pointed to severe shortages of food, with women and children disproportionately affected. We covered this on How Do We Miss That every week with a Fuck Israel segment. In May of 2024, following U.S. pressure after the assault on Rafah, Israel allowed a greater number of commercial trucks into Gaza while simultaneously restricting humanitarian convoys. And then they created the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that literally kettled people into these cattle areas and then opened fire on them as they were getting aid. All right. Last month, Walla reported that 11 Israeli supermarket chains generated hundreds of millions of shekels in revenue after winning an exclusive tender to supply food and aid to Gaza. Why are we allowing Israel to supply food and aid when everybody's already provided it and it's sitting outside in trucks? I don't trust Israeli supermarket chains. We've already known that they've mixed in, some kind of medication that would kind of mess with their stomachs because they've been starved. So anything that goes in their stomachs, any kind of pills, and we reported on that too. Letterman told Middle East Eye that the privatization of aid delivery contributed to the creation of a monopoly that makes it possible to generate large profits. Again, motherfuckers. He added that this worsened the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Of course it did, enabling a small number of actors to profit, often in cooperation with Israel, while the vast majority of the population suffers. Because, of course, they do. All right? And then we've got more to this article. There's a lot more to it. The architecture of starvation. All right? And then toward the end, let's skip down to the bottom. While the use of starvation as a weapon of war has appeared in other conflicts in recent years, the report argues that few, if any other cases, have so profoundly undermined this norm as Israel's systematic, meticulously managed, and openly visible starvation of Gaza. Throughout the report, Letterman emphasizes the role in the United States under both the Biden and Trump administrations, as well as other Western governments, in enabling Israel's conduct, arguing that they share responsibility for sustaining the policy. I would include Russia and China in there as well, because they continue. Russia claims we have 2 million Russians living in Israel. They're like a second home to us. China is Israel's #1 trading partner and could fix this tomorrow if they chose to. And they don't, because they'll do whatever is economically beneficial to them. And they don't necessarily care about the suffering of the Palestinian people. Not enough to stop trading with Israel. Quote, all this will not remain confined to Gaza, which we've been saying for a long time, and it already has spread. Okay, warning that it's going to spread to other places around the world. You mean like Lebanon, like Syria, like Iran, like everywhere they're trying to reestablish the Greater Israel Project, like Ukraine, like what just happened in Albania? Yeah, it's spreading. You bet it's spreading. All right. What Israel did in Gaza will not stay there. It has already not remained there. Therefore, it's not only a struggle against what Israel did to the Palestinians in Gaza, but a global struggle against these kinds of actions. Totally agree. Okay. So that's Middle East Eye. All right. Then we also have Middle East Monitor. Now, this happened like 5 days ago. So it's a little dated at this point, but there was some kind of a ceasefire agreement on the table that was being proposed, and both Hezbollah and Israel, of course, rejected a ceasefire agreement. Israel's never agreed to one ceasefire agreement, and they haven't ceased firing for one day. I mean, there's these announcements of ceasefires, but I've never actually seen one. So let's go to reader mode here so we can focus on this. All right. Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem on Thursday rejected outcomes of direct negotiations between Lebanon and Israel, AA reports. That's the Turkish state media. In a statement marking the death anniversary of Iran's former supreme leader, Ruhollah Khomeini, Qassem said the outcomes of the negotiations are completely rejected by broad segments of the Lebanese people. He said the U.S.-backed ceasefire understandings reflected American and Israeli visions for Lebanon's future and sought to subject the country to what he called the Greater Israel Project. Where have we heard that phrase before? I actually published an article on September 11th of last year about how the Greater Israel Project must not happen. A joint Lebanese-U.S.-Israeli statement announced early Thursday that Beirut and Tel Aviv had agreed to talks in Washington to implement the ceasefire based on a complete halt to Hezbollah fire and withdrawal of all Hezbollah members from the area south of the Litani River. I think Israeli bombs are doing that either way. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun said that the U.S. would determine the timing and mechanism for implementing the ceasefire, which could begin within 24 hours of receiving approval. Of course, that was all in vain. The Hezbollah leader accused Israel of attempting to achieve politically what it had failed to accomplish militarily. He added that Israeli settlements in northern Israel will not be safe as long as Lebanese villages remain under attack. That's only fair. We're only concerned with ending the aggression, securing a ceasefire, and ensuring Israel's withdrawal. Israel has no intention of withdrawing. They're stealing the country up to the Litani River and beyond. Qassem stressed that any ceasefire must apply across all Lebanese territory, adding that as long as the Israeli occupation continues, quote, the resistance will continue. Israel occupies areas in southern Lebanon, some held for decades and others seized during the 2023-24 conflict. During the current offensive, Israeli forces advanced more than 10 kilometers into Lebanese territory, marking their deepest incursion since 2000, sorry. More than 3,500 people have been murdered and over 10,000 injured in Israeli attacks across Lebanon since March 2nd, according to Lebanese officials. And we've covered what Israel has been doing to Lebanon extensively. We've had our eye very firmly on that ball, watching it unfold as most of the world isn't paying attention thanks to what's happening with Iran. And thankfully, Iran actually stood up for Lebanon and bombed Israel this week in retaliation for them bombing Beirut, because it's about time. So I mentioned Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. One of the reasons why I even know about Dr. Hussam, and it's now been 18 months that we've been talking about him since he walked into that Israeli tank outside the Kamal Adwan hospital in Gaza in December of 2024. And they put him in a hole, and they've kept him imprisoned and tortured and starved, and he's emaciated and lost more than 20 kilograms. Well, we got news this week. Eva advises that Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya's legal team appealed his arbitrary detention. Israeli authorities transferred him on June 3rd from the Qab prison to solitary confinement in Nafa as a punitive measure. The move comes amid harsh conditions and denial of medical treatment. Okay, and Sanaa Saeed also talked about Dr. Hussam. Remember how everyone rushed to use this photo of his walking toward an IDF tank to advocate for the lives of his patients? Rushed to plaster it everywhere. Rushed to make AI edits, art, whatever. That was in December of 2024. How often is he mentioned today? He's alive. He's being tortured and slowly killed. He, alongside every Palestinian hostage, must be freed. I said, I have not stopped talking about him, first off. And this was just a few days ago. 525 days, his crime, he refused to leave his patients to their fate. 525 days since Israel abducted him, now 529. And don't stop calling for his immediate release. What a mess. Fuck Israel. And even more heartbreaking was this news. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya asked his lawyer to deliver a message to his son. If you can reach Anas al-Sharif, ask him to remind the world of our cause and our suffering. He didn't know that Israel murdered Anas in August last year. You could see that covered on INN News by Reef and Colin. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya was Anas al-Sharif's pediatrician in northern Gaza. Imagine he wants his son to pass a message to Anas al-Sharif's murdered 10 months ago. Israel has illegally detained him without charge, trial, or time limit for more than 500 days and has now placed him in solitary after his lawyer sought to appeal his imprisonment. Like the other 9,500 hostages held by Israel, including hundreds of children, free them all. That's Anas. May he rest in power. And fuck Israel for murdering him. And fuck Israel for imprisoning this doctor. Because he would heal the sick. And they don't want that. Worse. Now, we heard a lot about this American girl that got kidnapped in the West Bank. Well, a lot is a relative term. But I heard a lot of outcry about an American girl that was kidnapped. But there were actually 4 girls that were kidnapped. And 2 of them, as our friend Abu Bakr Abed states here, Israel yesterday kidnapped 4 women. 2 are footballers on the Palestinian national team. Their names are Natali Abu Dia and Rand Halwani. Is it normal to kidnap footballers, FIFA, as we're about to start the World Cup? Where are the sports media organizations? This story should be headline everywhere. And then Indie Media Award honoree Asa Winstanley. Ban all Israeli sports teams from everything now. Thank you, Naybones. Yes, fuck Israel. And fuck FIFA. Yeah, they're also disgusting. Okay, but like I said, there were 4 women that were abducted. Mel, the village crazy lady, talked about that. These are the 4 college girls, including one American citizen that the IDF kidnapped in the middle of the night from their homes and threw into their torture dungeons. Jolan Abu Awad, Natalie Abu Daya, Layla Nael Khalil, and Sama Safi. Israel has a policy called administrative detention that allows them to kidnap Palestinians and imprison them for 6-month increments without any charges whatsoever. Again, what happened to those journalists outside Delaney Hall that didn't obey the half-mile perimeter? They got put into jail without charges for 24 hours. This is the model that they use. Over 3,000 Palestinians were being held on administrative detention in Israeli prisons on October 7th. That's why Hamas took all those Israelis back to Gaza to exchange for their release. It was supposed to be an exchange. Return all the hostages. They always were offering, well, when you return ours, we'll return yours. But do you see how it works? When Israel kidnaps people and holds them for months and years on end, they simply are prisoners on administrative detention. But when Hamas does it, they're hostages. Again, these are the 4 women. Free them and all the hostages. All the people imprisoned in these Israeli torture dungeons. And I weighed in here. Hey, Israel, free the hostages. Remember, Israel was all keen about free the hostages. Since the Pisraelis spent 2 years shrieking about hostages, thanks for reminding everyone about how they're holding 100 times that number of Palestinians without charge in torture and rape prisons. Hashtag free the hostages. The real hostages. Because there are none left. Hamas already gave back all the hostages and the bodies and the remains of every hostage that they had taken. That talking point's done. You can't talk about that anymore. Israel gassed their own hostages multiple times, and not just with the Hannibal directive that day, but afterwards. We reported on that they gassed tunnels where they knew hostages were, but that they also thought that Hamas was, and they would rather take the risk of murdering their own and possibly killing the Hamas fighter. That is literally what they were doing. Okay? Now, I showed a video from Miss Rachel before. I'm going to show another one now. And this one is prescient.
Doing things for power and fame and money, and not sick of people doing things for power and fame and money and not because it's right. Why don't people care about kids who are born in certain places? You could have been born there, your kids could have been born there. I'm sick of people not caring because of the color of kids' skin, or not caring because they were born in a certain place, or not caring because they're a certain religion. These are children's lives. They're all so precious. Why isn't everyone in the world talking about Sudan? Why was there able to be a genocide in Gaza? Children's rights being violated everywhere. The fact that we could take amazing care of all the kids in the world, but instead we abuse and kill and bomb and deeply hurt them in many places makes me sick. Why are we putting families in jail? Why aren't people in power doing everything possible to help kids? And thank you to everyone who does care. I'm sick of people.
She's exhausted. I think we're all exhausted. You can see it. And it's exhausting. And I appreciate her using her platform to do that, because she doesn't have to. She could just have a children's show and have a massive YouTube platform and reach people. But she's using it to help children really in need. And it's amazing, you know, because they publicly go after her so hard. She's so public about it. and so fierce about it. How she wore artwork from the Palestinian kids on her dress to one of the things that they invited her to as a show of solidarity, and also as a way to kind of stick it to the people and show them, you know, shout out to her. Again, we don't always agree with everything she does, and she supported Zoran Mamdani while he was running, and they did the whole thing with the you know, crying for children or whatever. Again, everything she does is in service of making sure that kids get a fair shake. So when he does a pre-K thing, she's going to show up, and I get that. And I appreciate her showing up for the kids of Delaney, and I appreciate her showing up for the kids of Gaza and the kids of Sudan and the kids of Syria and the kids of Lebanon. She's a remarkable human being, and we should all strive to be more like her. Okay, now we're going to get to the hardest part. Speaking of children, and speaking to Miss Rachel, and why are children. By the way, before we continue, I also wanted to make out the point that she's talking about all these horrific places where they mistreat children. Don't forget that they mistreat children here in the United States here as well. Tons of them. There's tons of alleged child trafficking operations that have been exposed multiple times. We don't exactly treat our children well here either. And it's disgraceful, and I agree. No, I don't want her to be president. Oh my God, no, Topher, God, no, don't start. No, we can never have her be a politician, because then she'd have to pander and she'd have to do all kinds of monstrous shit that we don't ever want to see her have to do. Let some people not be politicians. I saw this before with activists that have incredibly powerful voices get completely neutered because they now have to pander and cater to a broader audience rather than trying to reach a specific group of people and awaken a broader audience. No, that's okay. You're welcome to vote for who you want. I'd say shit in the voting booth and none of the above. So that's my take. So I love you, Miss Rachel. I don't want you to be president. I don't want that responsibility put on you. But here's the most heartbreaking thing that I saw all week. And a lot of people were talking about this story, thankfully, but at the same time, awfully, because they had to talk about this story all week. The IDF shot a 7-month baby in the head. And Beth Salem, by the way, came out with the footage today of the actual shooting. I'm not going to show it. It's awful. This is awful enough as it is. This is the father who sat next to his child as they were shot, and his wife. And you watch him in this video get out of the car and holding his baby and not know what to do. And his wife is, again, it's horrible. So yesterday they had a funeral for this baby, Sam.
مش بدك فيها بقالي بس عمي بس عمي بس لو سمحت لا تنزل الحمام ان شاء الله ان شاء الله نعم ان شاء الله الله يرحمه كان في ضربه يسمحوا حواليه يحموه
Just awful. So let's learn a little bit more about what happened here. But before we do, I saw Rod. When will you stop talking about children being killed, Miss Rachel? When people stop killing them. So again, to continue on the Miss Rachel vein. Mondo Weiss, another Indie Media Award honoree, wrote this up. Israeli soldiers shot and killed this Palestinian baby in the West Bank. Remember, there's no Hamas there. Hussam Abu Haikal was riding in his parents' car through Hebron when Israeli soldiers opened fire. His mother's in intensive care and his father, wounded in the hand, buried him alone the next morning. He was only 7 months old. Hussam Abu Haikal was 7 months old. On Friday night, Israeli soldiers opened fire on his family's car in Hebron. He was pulled out of it dead. The family lives in the Tel Rumedia neighborhood in Hebron's Old City, an area surrounded by Israeli soldiers, checkpoints, and settler outposts, and where Palestinians live under constant harassment and restrictions to their movement. Since Friday, the Abu Haikal family has been reeling in shock, trying to piece together their loss. Sama Abu Haikal, Sam's aunt, told Mondoweiss that Sam and his parents, their brother Fad, his wife Danya, had been returning from a visit to family members in Bethlehem. Quote, they were very, very close to Tel Rumedia in an area called Wadi Haraya, where the Israeli army doesn't usually set up checkpoints. Surprised by the patrol, Fad stepped on the brakes suddenly, but the soldiers had already raised their rifles. One of them fired a single bullet that struck the steering wheel, broke into fragments, sending shrapnel into the car. Shrapnel struck little Sam in the face, killing him, she said. Sam's mother, Danya Salabe, was wounded by another fragment that hit her near the jugular vein, while Fad was wounded in the hand. Danya is now in the hospital in intensive care where she learned that her child had been killed. Doctors sedated her while Fad went out this morning to bury Sam himself despite his wounded hand. According to Sama, even though Tel Rumedia is dangerous at all times, this is still a huge shock for the entire family. Of course it is. In Tel Rumedia, she said, only residents are permitted entry. And when I go visit my brother, soldiers often turn me back. And when I'm allowed to go in, I'm scared all the time because of the sheer number of soldiers and settlers everywhere. They've already taken over and occupied this entire town. Sama described life in Hebron as having gotten more dangerous over the past year, with Israeli settlers constantly harassing residents and even hurling objects at the children. The situation has become unbearable, and there seems to be very little attention worldwide. Here you can just be killed with no consequences at all. Welcome, Care Bear. The Israeli army was quoted by Israeli media as saying that the soldiers perceived the car accelerating towards them, acknowledging that the victims were uninvolved civilians and that the incident was under investigation and they'll find that they had no wrongdoing. This is the second incident of its kind in the West Bank in less than 3 months, ever since Israeli soldiers opened fire on a car in Donbass last March, killing 4 members of a Palestinian family, including both parents and 2 children aged 5 and 7. And guess what? We covered that on this show too. The Israeli army also said at the time that it was investigating the incident and had opened a probe. To date, no Israeli soldier has faced any charges, nor will they. Sam's death raises the number of Palestinian children killed by Israeli forces in 2026 to 115. He was the 17th Palestinian child killed this year in the occupied West Bank. Again, no Hamas. What are you doing there? They're tearing it up block by block and taking it over, blowing up houses, running ordinances to destroy city block by city block and displacing the West Bank and stealing that land like they did to Gaza. That was what Miriam Adelson demanded of Trump, to allow this to happen. So not just fuck Israel, but fuck Trump. And as we mentioned, don't worry, Israel. I investigated myself, found I did nothing wrong. That is the brilliant and talented Asal Rod. Now in chat, Descent in Bloom, I think she's there as well. She made a beautiful video that's short, and I wanted to bring it and play it. I don't know if it was played on Pro Pill. I don't care. I want to play it anyway. And this is called A World That Counted to 30,000 and Did Nothing. Hopefully this music isn't copyrighted. If so, I'll have to pull it out later, but that's okay. Free Palestine. Fuck Israel. Fuck the United States and the West for inflicting this genocide and this these horrors on all these families and all these people. Disgraceful. Now, she pulled a lot of this, and I give her a ton of credit. She shared this with me. Thank you. From a website called Shireen.ps. This is the Shireen Observatory, named after Shireen Abu Akleh. All right, this is the martyrs list, and this is updated on a real-time basis, and you can break it down by martyrs and prisoners and injuries, journalists and the press martyrs, the settlements, demolitions, and you can check this out in multiple languages, okay, and search by someone's name or official announcement. Category. Okay, and this is where she got a lot of these photos from. And wow, that's rough work. That's incredibly important to document these people. They mattered, they lived, and they were murdered, and it needs to be recorded somewhere. Yes, it's heartbreaking, and thank you for spending the time to put this all together. I know you hurt like I do, and like a lot of us do. All right. Andy Worthington, I'm going to wrap up with this one because fuck Israel again. Israel murdered a Palestinian teacher who devoted her life to educating Gaza's children. This smart, young Palestinian woman, Dina Al-Madoun, was a teacher in Gaza who devoted her life to educating Gaza. I said that one. Educating Gaza's kids. Israel just murdered her in an aerial attack. If you think she was the enemy, then you're demonstrably sick in the head. Israel is a pestilence seeking to drag the whole of humanity into a moral abyss. Every day for the last 32 months, Israel has been murdering civilians in Gaza. When challenged, which is rare, it sometimes pretends that they were collateral damage in attacks targeting high-value individuals, but its leaders and its spokespeople lie incessantly. Their true aim is the extermination of the Palestinian people, and the West is letting them get away with it. One child at a time, one teacher at a time, one blameless civilian after another. Why? Her name is Dina Al-Madoun. Say her name. Okay. And Andy Worthington, again, another Indie Media Award honoree. He also is a tremendous advocate for freeing the remaining prisoners at Guantanamo Bay that have been held without charge or trial for decades at this point. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Fuck Israel. That was hard. I know. I try not to bring those stories, but yeah, they lived, they loved, they had a favorite food, a favorite song. They made memories. They looked forward to their favorite meals, their people. They had parents who loved them and are heartbroken and devastated for them and because of this, which was Israel's goal. Yeah, put up your watermelons, everyone, for sure. Yeah, fuck Israel. That's right. I mean, it's just... Who was up at Capitol Hill this week? Miss Rachel. Yeah, again, advocating for children. I'm going to expect her to do that. And I'm not going to hate on her for that. You know, unbelievable. Just, I need a second here to recover. So while I do that, please support independent media because we need it more than ever. The ways to do that, and the amazing people, including Dissent in Bloom, by the way, are up on that wall of fame. I appreciate every one of them. I look at that every day, and it really does mean the world to me that they support what we're doing here, and they get it. Ways to do that, again, Cash App, $ Indie News Network at ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. You can go to paypal.me/Indie News Network. Do that as friends and family. Or at patreon.com/Indie News Network for a monthly subscription. You can also do that over on Substack at Indie Media Today and at INNnewsletter.com. We take monthly or annuals over there. And then you can do a one-time over at IndieNewsNow.com. There's a section to keep the news free. It's also a 24/7 news aggregator, ad-free, with over 100 different sources, including Dissent in Bloom and Andy Worthington and Mondo Weiss and a lot of the sources and outlets that I've been showing tonight on this show. Okay. That was tough. Thank you, everyone. Okay. I want to talk about Cuba. This is a short one. But let's go to friend of the show, Zay Squirrel. Just reminding everybody that Bernie Sanders voted to confirm genocidal Zionist neocon warmonger Marco Rubio to make it a unanimous 99-0 vote as Secretary of State. And now Marco Rubio is imposing a genocidal starvation siege on Cuba, and Bernie Sanders, who proudly voted to confirm him, hasn't said fuck all about it. Bullshit Bernie rides again. So one of the sources and the people that I depend on most to tell me about what's going on in Cuba, because he's got family there and because he's got a lot of experience with the community, is Arturo Dominguez at Decolonized Journalism. I'm also a paid subscriber to his Substack, which you can subscribe at extremearturo.substack.com. He wrote an article about in mid-May about the latest push against Cuba and the $100 million aid proposal. Now, I remember reading an article a couple weeks ago from Alan McLeod at Mid-Press News about how Cuban media has been bought off, a lot of it, even the independent Cuban media, by USAID and NED grants. And we exposed certain people and organizations that were doing that. Now, Arturo talks about promoting debunked stories about Cuba and offering aid is supposed to help the U.S. look like the good guy, but it isn't changing any minds. So, what are we talking about? Cuban-American hardliners following Secretary of State Marco Rubio's lead in promoting various debunked and wholly invented narratives about Cuba. This time, however, they're sweetening the pot by adding a supposed $100 million in aid to assist in their propaganda efforts. More specifically, the aid is to be distributed solely by Catholic charities that work on the island, something the Cuban government typically welcomes. Doing basic math will tell you what Rubio does. A generous offer that amounts to about $10 per person on an island of about 10 million Cubans. That's hardly enough to make a tangible difference after the economic damage done over just the last few months and Trump's 2017 maximum pressure sanctions, let alone the last 65 years. To gloss over these facts that disrupt their narratives, they're weaponizing discredited propaganda. In an interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News aboard Air Force One, Rubio mentioned the aid offer while saying there is no economy in Cuba and promoting the idea of a single private company that the military controls hordes of all of Cuba's wealth. He argues that one company, Gaza, which is Grupo de Administración Empresarial, SA, controls all the money making and that it's sitting on $15 to $16 billion, an assertion based on a discredited report from the Miami Herald. They pulled it out of their ass. This hardliner argument posits that the people don't benefit from Cuba's economy, despite healthcare, housing, and education being human rights that the government provides. So all of that 15 to 16 billion would be privatizing those services and extracting that and charging them money that they don't already have, putting them into debt or starving them, and then stealing the land and building up hotels and luxury condos on the beach. Gaza was created in the 1990s after the fall of the Soviet Union during what was known as the Special Period in Cuba. Its creation was based on the idea that military officials with business training could run state-owned companies more efficiently during an economic crisis. Gaza is now a massive conglomerate that plays a major role in Cuba's economy. While Gaza isn't very transparent, there is no evidence anywhere to suggest that what hardliners, the Miami Herald, or Rubio argue is true. Last week, Rubio imposed sanctions on Gaza. When asked about the sanctions, he argued that it's a company that basically is taking anything that makes money in Cuba and illegally putting it into the pockets of a few regime insiders, unquote. However, he's ignoring that millions of Cubans work for state-run companies that operate under Gaza. Like most other unilateral economic sanctions imposed by the U.S., these directly impact the Cuban people and result in suffering and death, particularly for the most vulnerable Cubans. So then he's quoting more Rubio here. All right. That we're going to be doing more, by the way. Fuck that guy. Similarly, the manufactured story about Russian and Chinese spy bases in Cuba has been brought back from the dead despite being debunked many times. But it's not just Rubio and Cuban-American hardliners spreading these lies. Republicans, and now even some Democrats, because it's a uniparty, made a point of perpetuating these false narratives in a House Appropriations Committee hearing with Secretary of Defense Whiskey Pete Hegseth earlier this week. All right. At no point have hardliners, lawmakers in either party, or administration officials discussed how the U.S. has been occupying Cuba for more than 100 years, operating its own military and spy base on the island in Gitmo. Without the duplicity and ignoring the critical facts, hardliners wouldn't have an argument to make. So instead, they present false narratives and lie to manufacture support for a war with Cuba centered on politics and hate, not human rights or civil liberties. But yet they're going to use U.S. aid or the State Department to declare a human rights crisis. You can't claim to care about the people you're actively starving. Israel's doing it every day. Well, sort of. They also claim they don't care about them. Cubans everywhere are all too aware of who's mostly responsible for the island's suffering. Some choose to ignore the truth because their politics are more important to them than human life will ever be. That's, again, like I said, a short one from Arturo, a little bit of an update and a counter to some of the narratives about what's happening about Cuba. Yeah, I know. Snow Hembo lives in a place called Your Mom's Anus. Yes, I know that place. I sure do. Not my mom's anus, though. That would be gross. All right, and oh yeah, there was a thumbnail for this one too. I wanted to show you all. This is going to be the thumbnail for this segment. So we're talking about broadcast media and $100 million being dangled over Gaza, and now sanctioned because they're not going along. The cruelty is the point. They just want to punish the Cuban people in the end, because the more punishment inflicted on the Cuban people, the more they're going to be upset with their leadership, and then you'll see actual revolution in the country. That's what they're actually hoping for. That plus CIA infiltration of media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And on top of rampant corruption, you're going to have a problem. It's going to be a problem. So I love Arturo. He's independent, and so is A Squirrel. Support independent media like INN, because we need it more than ever. God, man, it's getting infiltrated from every which way, left, right, sideways. So please support independent outlets that are user-funded like this one, that don't take sponsorships, that don't, that don't sell out, and that won't interview politicians and take their line of bullshit and let them spew their nonsense on our platform. There's that too. All right. Sean the Accord Lord is definitely on there. Love you, brother. So is the Talking Wombat, who was one of our very first Patreon subscribers every month, basically since INN started. So Cash App, $, Indie News Network, at ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, over at patreon.com/Indie News Network. You've got the Substacks at INNnewsletter.com for the network, and Indie Media Today, which is where this show is housed, all the clips, articles that I publish, appearances on other shows, and I share the weekly update to this database of subscribers as well. Every Sunday, usually. Yesterday it went out on Monday. And then, of course, the name of the show is Indie News Now Live, because there's a website called IndieNewsNow.com where a lot of the articles, videos, and content that you're seeing tonight came from. I use RSS to aggregate all these articles from over 100 different outlets and present them, just the title, the photo, and the thumbnail. And you can, title and the thumbnail, and a little brief description, and then you could choose to click to go read it over at their website. We're not trying to gatekeep. We're not trying to take their content or take their viewers. We're actually trying to amplify them and get more people to see their content. The whole idea behind it. We also stream live there as a backup. So whenever INN is live, if you don't find us on whatever platform you like, you can always go to IndieNewsNow.com, click on the watch live link, and you can actually watch the stream live. It's delayed by about 15 seconds. Okay, I am up to our lightning round. And again, because I had time in advance and I had this show curated a day in advance, I was able to make a thumbnail and kind of tease what's going on here. This is most of what we're going to talk about, and I've got a couple more things to showcase as well. We're going to talk about Trump and Duke energy trades. We're going to talk about Ukraine. and terrorizing the Donbass. Now, remember, they still claim that the Donbass is part of Ukraine, technically, even though they declared themselves independent and then voted to join Russia. There's also boat strikes in the Pacific Ocean now. Trump and the military are now doing this in the Pacific, not just in the Caribbean. And then Ryan Knight. We're going to talk about Ryan Knight resurfacing as well. Okay. So first thing we're going to talk about again, Donald Shaw, I kept forgetting his name, over at Sludge, one half of Sludge. He's been following the money along with Judd Legume, along with Robbie Yeager, along with Rob Pyers and others. Trump purchased Duke Energy stock over 4 transactions in Q1. We reported heavily about Trump's stock buys in advance of making an announcement with a company and then making some sales and taking profit personally from those announcements and knowing that that stock was going to bump because he talked about it. Yesterday, Trump granted Duke Energy $62 million in public funds to refurbish its coal-fired power plants in Kentucky and North Carolina. Duke Energy stock price is up today, even as the rest of the market sells off. Because of course, and of course, Donald links to the receipts, Trump's financial disclosure from Q1, which we covered, the Duke Energy announcement, and the Trump announcement bragging about the corruption. Oh, no, bragging about the $62 million grant, of the grant of public funds. Right? So, fuck Duke Energy, fuck Trump there. More emoluments, corruption, nakedly in the open, and nobody's trying to stop it. And he'll just pay his $200 fine at the end of the quarter. But this is corruption beyond just stock trading, because this is manipulating the market after stock trading in advance of knowing where you're going to go. Like this is insider trading in every way, shape, and form. Which the last I remember or heard was a crime. But I guess, crime's legal now. Now, I covered an article by Declan Mulrooney a couple weeks ago. He also published this over about a week ago over on Notes, which I beg everyone to go and join Substack Notes if you're not on there. It's Twitter, only better and only smarter. Following the Ukrainian bombing of an eastern Ukrainian school a week ago, most people never heard about that, Ukraine has once again targeted civilians traveling in a passenger bus. 7 dead and 11 wounded in Donetsk. 10 people, including a child, have been hospitalized. A decade of bombing their own people, quote unquote, and they expect these people to willingly align with Kiev and rejoin the rest of Ukraine? It's ludicrous. So let's go and let's watch this video, which is pretty horrifying. I hope that there's nothing graphic. I mean, look how bombed out these buses are. Just torn to shrapnel. Body bags. There are bodies laying on the ground there that are not covered yet. Awful. Indie Media Award honoree Eva Bartlett. Western-backed Ukrainian terrorists attacked a train in Crimea, killing 1, injuring 3. And also attacking Simferopol and killing 3 people, injuring 7. Quote, a drone attacked the train on the Oskovo-Kerch route. According to preliminary data, 1 person was killed and 3 were injured. Earlier, the head of Crimea reported the deaths of 3 more people and 7 injured as a result of an enemy strike on Simferopol. Okay, so, and these are like really graphic. I actually saw like real dead bodies laying on the ground. I can't show a lot of these pictures that are on her Telegram. All right. And then there's, of course, the Ukrainian that's calling this Russian propaganda lies. But of course, we know that these are legitimate Ukrainians that are attacking their own people because they're Russian speaking and separatists. Okay. And then we've got this from anti-war Dave DeCamp, another Indie Media Award honoree. U.S. executes 2 men in a strike targeting a boat in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. This bombing campaign has killed more than 200 people, of course. U.S. Southcom on Wednesday said that its forces bombed another alleged drug-running boat in the Eastern Pacific Ocean as the Trump administration continues the extrajudicial executions at sea. Southcom said the strike killed 2 male narco-terrorists, which is a term the Trump admin has adopted in its attempts to justify murdering people for an alleged crime that doesn't receive the death penalty in the United States. All right, I'm not going to play the video. Dave continues that the Pentagon has also never offered any evidence to back up its claims that the boats it's bombing are carrying drugs, and accounts from survivors and family members of victims of other strikes that were reported by Dumb Shit Nudes, okay, suggest that the U.S. has been targeting fishing boats that were not. Besides being clearly illegal under both U.S. and international law, the bombing campaign has also failed at stemming the flow of drugs to the U.S., according to a recent report from the New York Times. Who cares what they have to say about that? Numbers from U.S. Customs and Border Patrol show that more cocaine has been seized at the border and other ports of entry in 8 months after the bombing campaign began than was seized in the 8 months prior. How were they able to get them out? I wonder. When they're bombing the boats, how are they able to get them through? They're still getting even more through into the ports. Most of the drugs come through in the airports anyway, not through boats. According to account from the CIA-friendly Intercept, since the campaign began in September 2025, U.S. boat strikes have killed at least 207 people, all civilians, since they were operating civilian boats, were not engaged in combat, and posed no threat to U.S. forces at the time of their murders, for which there is no justice, no impunity, no trial, nobody held accountable. War criminals, all these fucking people. Want to shout out my buddy Zach at Radio Free Pizza. He put out a new article called Potential for Pandemonium. I encourage everyone to read that. It's a longer one. An audio voiceover is 20 minutes long. So listen to it if you want. But this is a good one. So go check out Zach. Next, I wanted to mention Ryan Knight's return. So everybody, I think a lot of people here know this account, Proud Socialist. And a lot of people who were around in 2020, 2021, March for Medicare for All Time, remember Ryan Knight. Ryan Knight was like one of the arc stories that a lot of people didn't believe. But he went from like raging shitlib Elizabeth Warren supporter to socialist, proud socialist. They literally gave him the moniker, and he started railing against the duopoly. All right. So Ryan went into kind of disappeared after 2022. I actually went when call-in was a thing. He had a call-in show, and I was a guest on his call-in show one time. And not long after that call-in show, he decided that he was going to step back and run the social media account, but not make any more content, not do live streams, not do podcasts. He had a pretty successful one, but I think that the news was kind of messing with him. I think his sister at the time had either gotten married or was sick. There was family stuff going on. So he stepped away for a while. And I heard a video the other day, and I heard the voice. I'm like, wait, is that Ryan Knight? I think it is. And then I saw that it's from Proud Socialist Account. I'm like, holy shit, that is Ryan Knight. So I'm going to play this video so you can all hear what Ryan has to say. And he's going to explain what got him making content again and what got him so fired up. So let's go, Ryan.
Okay, this capitalist pyramid that is going viral on X, on Twitter, is so absurd that it got me to break my rule of making media and come out of the shadows. So, hey, everybody. So, yeah, this was it. It was seen by like 800,000 people, which is just absurd. But it's this fantasy pyramid of what capitalism definitely is not. And it sells this idea that, like, look, if you work hard enough, you can move up and you too can become a trillionaire, like Elon Musk is about to be. And it's such a lie, and it is not the reality or the lived experience of all of us. But again, that's how the system stays intact, because it sells this dream, this American dream, that if you work hard, you can move up the pyramid, which is, most of us now realize, has certainly become an American nightmare, with 70% of Americans now struggling to afford food, housing, and healthcare. But so I wanted to share the actual pyramid. And a lot of people don't know this, but this is a real piece of history. This was published in 1911. It was published by the International Workers of the World in a socialist publication in 1911. And if you can see, the whole idea is, here's us, we work for all at the very bottom. I don't know if you can see my fingers. There we go. Here's the working class, and we hold up the entire pyramid here at the bottom. And above us is the bourgeoisie, who
also we feed all.
Both parties and the government serve. And then above them is the police, and they are really the protectors of the system.
We eat for you as the
prevent
bourgeoisie.
Uprisings,
we shoot at you as the cops.
Keep everyone in line and keep us obedient. And then above them, you'll see it says, we fool you. That's the media, to keep everyone obedient and to keep everyone
clergy
locked in the very system that's rigged against us. And then above them is the two ruling class parties that says, we rule you. And they do. They rule us, but then they rule and serve the billionaire class, who sits at the very top.
Okay. So that was one video. And then he brought a different video that actually was the one that caught my attention. And then I went back and I saw that he had posted this one up where he explained that, like, this triggered him so much that it brought him back. But this one's actually an even better video, actually.
This new article from The Economist is so ridiculous that I had to make a quick video and respond. The title of the article is The Rise of Gen Z Socialism. And there's a little bracelet that says eat the rich, and then a phone case that says capitalism is cooked. All right, let me tell you what's going on here. And don't get me wrong, it is a wonderful thing that we are seeing people from all over this country and all over the world really rise up and understand that we live in a moment of unprecedented income inequality, and we are really seeing the decay of capitalism unfold before us. But make no mistake, there is no socialism happening in response to that. If anything, the capitalists have doubled down and are doing everything they can to protect the system that enriches the CEO class. And one of the main ways they protect the capitalist system is by presenting or having a party that positions itself as if it is socialism. So they can make the working class and make the youth think that, oh, look, all I have to do is go and vote for the Democratic Party and boom, socialism just happened. Absolutely not. Let me make one thing very clear. Under no circumstances do the Democrats represent real workers own the means of production socialism. The Democrats are capitalists who sell us out to Wall Street, the war machine, the billionaires, and Israel, just like the Republican Party. True socialism is not even about government at all. True socialism is about putting the economy directly in the hands of the working class. Okay, and in the final stages of socialism, the state or the government itself withers away and the people and communities manage themselves. So this idea that all of a sudden by voting for Democrats, that we're going to have this worker state and that workers are going to control the economy again is blasphemy. In fact, I would say this is what the rulership, the ownership class is using to make you think change is happening.
Good video. Good points. Good kid. Good dude. Welcome back, Ryan Knight, proud socialist. Yes, I wanted to bring that up. Bill Villain, good. He said, I thought he was always posting from that Twitter account, right? I saw someone suggest that someone else started running it. That someone, I believe, was me. Because it seemed to me like it wasn't really him that was running it the whole time. I don't know if he was or wasn't. This leads me to believe that whether he was or wasn't, he certainly had access to post to it the entire time if he didn't. And he decided that he's back doing that. Maybe it was him the whole time. I don't know. But that's a good point. And if so, I was wrong, and I'll eat crow on that one. And I'm glad he's back. And I actually sent him a DM. I was like, hey, man, I'm glad that it's actually like you and hey, we need more people talking about this stuff, and it's a great video. So, yeah, federal job guarantee and UBS, Universal Basic Services, all the things. Okay, federally funded and locally administered. Yeah, not universal basic income, because that means that the landlords will just raise the rent. Federal job guarantee, so everybody gets work that has fair pay. Right? So, driving me Macy, I think everyone should live in castles like before the mud floods, right? Great. Okay. Real quick, one other thing. I don't know how many of you know The Dissident. Okay, the 307.substack.com. I've covered The Dissident a lot. The Dissident is actually a co-founding member of INN. One of the original 16 people that Reef and I approached and was like, hey, we're looking to do this thing where we've got writers and we've got live streamers and everybody comes together and we'll share the content that you write. Do you want to be part of this? He said, yeah. And then in about 2022, he was in school and decided to take a break after about 6 months after Russia invaded Ukraine and that war was going on. He was a big staunch advocate for Julian Assange. And he also went on hiatus for a while. So I seem to have noticed this as a pattern in some of the people in our space. And I appreciate them taking breaks, and breaks are important. And I certainly will celebrate them coming back. So The Dissident came back in August of 2024. It took about a 2-year break and came back, started writing some articles, actually in June of 24, when Julian Assange was freed from Belmarsh, and then went on a tear and started publishing like 7 to 10 articles a week at the 307.substack.com. And I did a couple of one-on-ones with him in August and December of that year. And he and I have stayed friendly. And we talk pretty often. And I include his articles every week in the weekly update for INN. He's a co-founder. So, and I timestamp them and put links and all that. But he messaged me this week and he said, hey, man, I'm going to be on Lee Camp's live stream. Now, he's been anonymous, and he still is anonymous. And he's never showed his face before in 6 years that I know him. Until this week. So go check this out over at the307.substack.com. Scroll down and click play, and you'll see what The Dissident actually looks like. I don't want to ruin it for him. And I don't want to unmask him, even though he did it himself on Lee Camp. I figure I'll give Lee the view. So go check that out. I'm happy for my buddy, The Dissident. I know that his work has been getting more and more shout outs lately. And he's turned into an orange check, which means that he now has hundreds of paid subscribers. So happy for him. Again, I remember when we all were just starting out, and it looks like he's got 8,100 subscribers to his publication free. And he literally just published something 8 minutes ago. The run-up to the Iran war exposes the inner workings of the U.S. and Israeli deep state. And he usually is quoting a lot of Israeli media or independent media and kind of respinning it with his own ideas and thoughts too. So big fan of The Dissident. Go support him. Go check him out. and go watch his live stream with Lee Camp. And I will, of course, link everything that I've shown tonight in the description, in the Substack article with all the links for the show. Okay. We're just past midnight, which is good timing. We still have the GoFundMe's to get to. Before we do, support independent media, please, because we need it more than ever. I mean, Sludge, independent. Everything that I show there is independent. Middle East Eye is an independent outlet. Asal Rod, independent professor. Zay Squirrel, like I said, all the people that are Eva Bartlett and antiwar.com, Zaccaroni Pizza and Ryan Knight, everybody's independent. We're all user funded. And that's the important thing, is that value for value system here. So value for value, meaning that if you see value and you get value out of this show and the shows that are on this channel, then return value in multiple ways. And I'm going to steal from Steve. All right. Time, talent, and treasure. All right. And that's time by dedicating and donating your time and sharing the show. All right. Talent by making stuff, making clips, making graphics, sharing stuff out there. And of course, treasure, which is the money end. That's Cash App $sign Indie News Network, go-fee.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, and patreon.com/Indie News Network, IndieNewsNow.com. Join that wall of fame. Get up there. All right. IndieMediaToday.com. There's all different ways to do that. Any way you do it, I'll put you up there. INNNewsletter.com as well. That's $8 a month at INN Newsletter. All right. So the GoFundMe's. Last week, I introduced a new GoFundMe to the rotation. Sadly, that I had to do that because fuck cancer. We did see some money flow into that campaign, thankfully. And we're going to talk about the people that we talk about every week. This was the thumbnail from last week's segment that published out yesterday, and I specifically broke out the segment where we talked about Elizabeth Wimmer and her cancer diagnosis, so that could be shared separately as its own clip. But what's going on here? Again, the first one is our friend Words of Will. Words of Will messaged me about a week and a half ago and told me that his wife got diagnosed with breast cancer, and at the same time her job just cut her to part-time, so she can't get insurance that she was supposed to get. Now they're in a really tough spot with no insurance. He messaged me that they're hanging in there and it's rough, and that she's undergoing chemo in like 9 days, and the kids were sick, just normal colds or whatever, but it's a lot to manage. So if you're able to, and a means, again, I even shared something about this when I first heard about it. I need to share it again. But they're up to over $4,000 raised of the $8,000 that's their goal. Somebody gave $1,000 earlier this week, thankfully. They're going to need a lot more. But she's 41 years old, diagnosed with breast cancer that spread to her lymph nodes. Because she can only work from home due to her compromised immune system during chemo, her work hours have been cut in half all of a sudden, making an already difficult situation even harder. Suddenly, they're facing a new financial, physical, and emotional reality that doesn't feel real. The boys are 6 and 8, and Will is doing DoorDash and doing what he can to survive. And any help that we can give, I appreciate, and I always say, give a shout out to those that are in need. I always say, if there's something that, somebody that that has a GoFundMe that needs to be amplified, let me know. That's what I believe we have these platforms to showcase the people that are in our audiences and in our communities, and people that we know personally, because GoFundMe has become the healthcare system for the United States, or another insurance system. And you never know who's feeling good, who got extra money, and who wants to do something good to help somebody out. I remember Shanda telling me when we did our one-on-one that somebody had donated $1,000 to her after seeing that, and it came in at a time when it was really needed, and it was totally unexpected and appreciated greatly. So again, fuck cancer. Fight for these boys. We love you, Will. We're here. If you need anything, just reach out to me. You know, I'll always be in here for you to listen, for you to sound off on. And then we're going to get back to Natalia. Cowboy Kitty Anthony was in chat earlier. I don't know if he's still here, but Natalia's his sister-in-law, and he organized this this campaign to help fund her activity. And I know you said that you distributed out all the money that was raised so far this week. He told me that. But she was abducted by ICE during a routine traffic stop where they suspected her of DUI. She wasn't drunk. They impounded her car. The car's gotten out, but she's still sitting there close to a year late. And it's a disgrace. There is no right to a speedy trial, although she's now pending appeal. We have no idea when that appeal is going to happen. She's been ordered to be deported. That's why they're appealing right now. This woman has asylum. There's no reason for this. It's insane. So if there's anything that anybody can do to throw a couple of bucks to Natalia's GoFundMe, this is going to legal defense and to help her daughter also. And is her daughter now graduating high school, Kitty? I think she's close to, if not in college at this point. Dissent, Free Natalia. Dissent wrote a beautiful article, by the way, about Natalia and about the prison system in Ohio. Yeah, Dissent also just had a $5,000 heart scan today. Terrified of losing her job. Yeah. A lot of people are. Oh, yes, she did just graduated. She did just graduate. Thank you, Cowboy Kitty. And again, thank you for speaking out for Natalia. I know she loves you for it. And you know, so many people in these facilities have nobody speaking out for them. And that's why we talked early on about the Delaney Hall and about these organizations that organize, that have mutual aid tents to take care of the families that are impacted by this. We're also going to talk about justice for Aspen. All right. It's been a year. It's been 1 year since she got locked up, and for two weeks, 15 days in a Georgia facility. Again, another article that Dissent in Bloom wrote about the situation in this prison facility. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She's autistic. She's vegan, and they served her food that had meat and made her sick. They mistreated her in multiple ways. She cannot go to prison. She's right now standing, potentially looking at decades in prison while she's pending trial and looking to hire experts and lawyers and support herself with art and any other way that she possibly can. She was going to go to school for criminal justice, but with this held over her head, she can't do that. So anything you can do to learn about her story, to share her story, to have someone share some money. Do we have any updates on Aspen's case? Not recently. I reached out to Halo to ask, but I will reach out to Halo, her mom, and ask again. Basically just that they're hanging in there. But yeah. So go to linktr.ee/justice4Aspen, and you can learn all about her story and get to her GoFundMe, which is up to 12.6, but has not gotten anywhere in months. So it might be because they hit goal already, or they hit the first goal. But Halo told me in our one-on-one last October, they were going to need $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for this defense to hire all the people they needed to hire. Man, what a mess. And then, of course, we're going to talk about Shan. Oh, I didn't put Natalia's GoFundMe in the chat, so let me do that real quick before I get to Shanda and fuck cancer with Shanda, of course. Everyone in chat knows and loves Shanda and Mrs. Shanda. We lost Shanda now, how many weeks ago? 8 weeks ago. God. We lost her 8 weeks ago, and it feels like yesterday. It still hurts. Oz is still hurting. Shout out to my brother Oz. I love you. The GoFundMe's still open, and there are still expenses. I don't know what the situation is about whether who's able to withdraw from this at this point. We've also set up a merch section at the INN shop to show to put her likeness from the Zago Brothers illustration from the Indie Media Awards on the Shanda Masta Fuck Cancer collection, where any profits would be donated to her family and to final expenses. And then in the end, after that's covered and done with, we'll donate that to charity, to a cancer charity. But everybody put your sunflowers up for Shanda. We miss you. We love you. And a reminder again that Shanda was a 2023 class of 2023 Indie Media Award honoree for live streaming and podcasting. Okay. And that's her brother, her best friend and co-host of Beauty and the Boomer, Oz. Oz is still hanging around, and we love Oz. And I talked to Oz a couple days ago. Actually, maybe it was even yesterday.
Great and powerful Oz.
He is great and powerful, and he's making his way back to all of us. And we're going to be hearing from him real soon. He put together a beautiful video tribute for her birthday a couple weeks ago. And I know that there's more to come from our friend Oz the Boomer. Shanda would not want him to be done, and I think that he's not going to be. I love you, man. Okay, I think that's me for the night. I'm done. I love you all. So support independent media because we need it more than ever. And I will see you next Tuesday. Love you. Night, fam. No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to me, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe?